Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am in lovely, beautiful Escazú, Costa Rica, where it is Sunday, the 22nd of December in the year 2024. And this is the second to last podcast of the year. Our next podcast will be Sunday, the 29th of December, and the year will be finished. And the next time I see you after that will be 2025, which is pretty incredible. Which reminds me, if you have not attended or seen my 2025 The Liminal Labyrinth presentation, I invite you to purchase it. The recording is available. You can either go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and click the link either in Book Online. You can scroll down through the bookings and there's a class there. Or you can go to my Astrologer's Thoughts on my website. And if you're on my website, you see at the bottom of the frame, you see Astrologer's Thoughts. That's my blog. Those are my blog entries. And the latest one will have the link to purchase The Liminal Labyrinth. And if you are interested and can't find it, you can certainly contact me. You can tag me on Instagram. You can DM me on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, or you can write to me, info@thegoldenastrologer.com or deb@debmcbride.com, and ask me to send you the link to purchase 2025, The Liminal Labyrinth, which is my presentation about all of next year. There's lots going on, lots and lots going on. And there's, we're going to go over it throughout the course of the year. But it is important, I think, to have this information in your hand before you begin the year. And this is what I always say, how do people get along without this? It's so valuable to have this information and to know that your experience of the year is guided by something that you can kind of put your hands on and figure out and work through. And also connect with me about if you'd like to, once you've heard about the new year and how it could potentially be affecting you and how it's opening into your astrological chart, you can always contact me for a session and we can go over it more personally. So in the meantime, if you'd like this, contact me and I would love to send you the link to get the recording. It's only $55. And we are fastly approaching Christmas, and we are at the solstice. So wherever you are in the world, happy solstice, whether you are in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, happy solstice, whether it is summer or winter. And the solstice is always an interesting time because we are leaving behind Sagittarius and entering into Capricorn, which is a time that we're leaving Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter, entering into Capricorn ruled by Saturn. And so Saturn really rules the Christmas holiday time, as I was mentioning prior to this week in my podcast. And we have a lot of, Saturnine feelings that come up during the Christmas season. Very serious feelings. There's jolly, there's merry, but jolly and merry usually happen prior to this. Prior to the solstice, jolly and merry happen for the Christmas parties, for the shopping, for the Christmas lunches, for the Christmas cards in the mail, the decorations, the Christmas tree. All of that is more Sagittarian. And then we get to Christmas and it feels kind of solemn and a bit somber and sober, and it's all Saturn. So this is Saturn ruling the time we are in, as opposed to like Jupiter continuing its merriment into the new year. Now, we are having some interesting aspects this week, and I will talk about them because Saturn and Jupiter are actually talking to each other very directly, and they have been for a while, but they are directly talking to each other on Christmas Eve. And this is the second passage of Jupiter squaring Saturn since August 19th, when was the first one. There'll be another one, but not for many months yet, because by that time, the two planets will be in different signs. And so Jupiter is in Gemini and Saturn is in Pisces, and these are mutable signs, and they are challenging one another. And, there is belief where Saturn is, in Pisces, which is interesting because we don't really suspend our beliefs and open our heart to these beliefs and connect with our beliefs, with Saturn. Saturn's all about, nah, I don't know, I have to see it first. Saturn is, I don't know if I should believe in this. Saturn is, what do I really believe in? Nah, this is not something that I can suspend my criticisms and judgment about. I have to believe that there's nothing going on out there, right? It's a difficulty in embracing one's faith. Even if you have faith and you believe in something, with Saturn in Pisces, we doubt our faith, we doubt our abilities to believe, we doubt that God is listening to us, the universe is listening to us. We have our doubts about our faith and about our belief systems. Jupiter is all about belief systems, but it's in the rational sign of Gemini, where it doesn't belong. It really belongs in the opposite sign of Sagittarius. So this is something interesting that has got to do with our beliefs, that has got to do with holding on to our faith no matter what. And that's a very big component of Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn in Pisces is like, why should I believe in this? Or I'm struggling to believe in this. Or I've lost my faith. Or I've lost my way in my journey with God and universe and Mother Nature and Source. And Jupiter is saying, come on, let's open up. Let's believe in this. We know something greater is running the show here. We know something greater is happening. We have to believe that something greater is supporting us. But when they are in this duality with one another, we have to walk with, okay, I've got to do my end of this work, and I have to hold faith and space for the universe to step in and guide me and support me on this. So it's a little complicated. And they were together in December of 2020. If you remember, I've talked about this a number of times, including last week, that Jupiter and Saturn were in conjunction at 0 Aquarius in 2020, December 21st or so, 2020. And so that was a very strong dynamic of belief, not belief, faith, not faith, opening versus keeping the door shut. And now we're at the first square, and that was August, and now we're having a second square. Now, oftentimes, this does not happen. It doesn't happen where there's 3 passages of Jupiter to Saturn. It doesn't happen when they're in conjunction, maybe once in a blue moon, but it's happening this time, and they are taking us from Gemini and Pisces to the signs after, which would be Jupiter going into Cancer and Saturn going into Aries. And so this is a very dynamic, interesting relationship. And we're moving from the mutable signs into the cardinal signs. And so this is going to be very interesting when they come up again, not for a while. But on Christmas Eve, December 24th, at 4:59 p.m. Eastern Time, Jupiter will square Saturn. It's almost identical time of year to when they conjunct, which was about December 21st, as I mentioned, 2020. What were you going through at that time? What was happening for you at that time? Because what was happening for you at that time has some sort of revisit in this moment. And there was a lot obviously going on in 2020, but if you go back, and sometimes I actually go back and listening to a podcast or a portion of a podcast from 2019 and 2020, because I want to go back and listen to what I was talking about as far as that cluster of Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter going on. And I think that was all really fascinating. And obviously we saw the effects of it in the world, but Jupiter and Saturn came together in the sign of Aquarius, 0 degrees Aquarius, on December 21st, 2020, and now we have Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius. And so that famous point, that's a famous point. When Jupiter and Saturn meet somewhere, it's a famous point, and they conjunct there, and now Pluto is at that famous point. And the 0 degrees Aquarius is famous also because Pluto has been back and forth over it for a year and a half. And it's very powerful. It's very powerful that Pluto is doing this, that it isn't just passing there once or twice. It's getting ready to be, 1 degree, but not quite yet. It's still at 0 degrees. And so that very beginning early Aquarius moment was triggered back then after this first year of COVID, and triggered again with Pluto hitting that point over and over. So we're remembering things, we're connecting with what we were doing back then, The Mars retrograde had just ended in November, a month before, and it was starting to finally move and connect with square Pluto, and it was dancing back and forth back then with those three planets that were in the end of Capricorn. And so that was the first marker of the two of those planets moving out of Capricorn for good and moving into the altruistic, humanitarian, revolutionary sign of Aquarius. And so we contemplate all of this. What did it mean for us back then? What was happening? And how is it presenting itself now? Where were you? And what kind of similar energies are around you that were back then? So this is very, very interesting and profound. And our Jupiter-Saturn stories are going to relate us back to that time on some level. So that's the first part of this. The other thing I want to talk about is this Mars retrograde, which it's at 4 degrees and change of Leo right now. It's moved backwards from 6. It was originally 6 when it went to retrograde a couple of weeks ago. And I have to say, I am seeing some very dramatic evidence of it. And I say dramatic and I think about it and I say, well, that's Leo, isn't it? Dramatic. It's drama. And what's happening, what I'm watching people go through and experience is some healing of very, very old wounds in their life. And in this moment, Leo is the heart. Okay? And we are looking at our hearts and where our hearts have been wounded, have been broken, have been saddened. And this Mars retrograde is bringing all of this up. The sadness, the wounds, the heartbreak. And I'm watching people go through their life and tell me stories. And this is mostly people I'm friends with and myself included. I'm in this too. I'm not excluded just because I'm an astrologer and I have a finger on the pulse doesn't mean I'm excluded from the effects of everything. So I'm having old wounds come up to be healed too. And places where we've been heartbroken. And it isn't easy to turn back and look at those things, but suddenly they're staring us in the face. Suddenly they're here. Suddenly they are like, well, I thought this was over and resolved. I thought I let this go a long time ago. I thought this was an old story. The old story is coming back up to be healed. And so if you're not feeling great, and Mars retrograde is always a wonky time, it's never really progressive. It's a retrograde, right? We're going back to look at things. And we're going back to look at things and be aware of what stories we've been carrying for so long that need to be healed and to be released. And I really advise you to sit down with yourself and contemplate where this is going on in your life. So we're contemplating 2020. We're contemplating Mars retrograde. We're contemplating where old heartbreaks or sadnesses or wounds have come back up and are, they're coming up now because your heart wants to be healed. They've been with you a long time. They're not something that, oh, wow, look at this, where's this coming from? This is something that has not been healed and has been lying under the surface and now says, in order for me to move forward in my life, I need to heal this. And I was talking with my friend and landlady Giselle today for a long time, and we were talking about one such subject in her life. And when I was leaving her, I gave her a hug, and she said, I think I'm going to go into my next lifetime with this. And I said, no, you're going to heal this now. That's what it's coming up for you to heal this now so you don't take it into your next lifetime. And, we talk about these things all the time. You, the listener, may not believe in such things, but I do. And I have been regressed many times and have seen many lifetimes. And, we have to look at the old wounds of the heart and soothe them and heal them and nurture ourselves and love ourselves right now, because this is something that's going to be with us. Mars is going to be retrograde for a while. Now it's going to leave Leo and go into the sign of Cancer, which is also very soft and emotional, and it may not be exactly your heart. It's like, but it's the emotions, it's the feelings, it's there. So it's retrograding in Leo. It's going to go direct in Cancer, but Cancer is where all the watery feelings are. It's where the tears are. It's where, we shed our tears. And if you haven't been shedding tears, you might try shedding some tears right now, because it might soothe the heartache and the heartbreak. And so this is something where we need to pay a lot of attention and stay close to ourselves. It's hard. It's the holidays. You want your heart to be light and merry and full of joy. And this is a heavy season. I was, looking at some post on Instagram, and people were saying, I am just not in the mood for the holidays. No, neither am I. I can't get into it again. Yeah, and I wanted to say, it's Mars retrograde. It's Mars retrograde. That's what's doing this. And it's like a flippant response, but if I have to explain it deeply, we're all licking our wounds, and we're all working on where our heart has felt these things: the sadness, the lack of joy, the woundedness, the heartbreak. And this is something we have to do during this time. It's unfortunate that it's at Christmas. Now, I was looking at my ephemeris right before I sat down to do the podcast, and the last time Mars was retrograde in Leo was in the end of 2009 into January 2010. So it was the same thing. It was, Mars retrograde at the end of 2009, and then moving into January of 2010, and it was all in Leo. It didn't go back into Cancer. And that was a difficult time for me, because that's when it was becoming very obvious that my partner was very sick and that we had to take some very strong action for him. And it was very sad, because he was very sad, and it was becoming obvious, although he looked very well and he was still working and everything at that point, it was becoming very obvious it was about to get very difficult. And I tell you these things because it was heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch your partner be sick. And so it was not an easy time then either. So if you have reflections of late 2009, early 2010, you may recognize when you were also healing your wounds and your heartbreak, and maybe you felt your creativity was broken on some level. Mars is here to help us heal, and it's going to go into Cancer. And we are going to dive deeper into our emotions, if you can believe it, because it already feels like a deep dive to me. This feels really intense. And Mars likes signs like Leo because they're fiery. So it's better for some reason in Leo than it would be in Cancer. But I feel like we have a lot of work to do on our history, and it's always, a retrograde is always review, revise, repeat, but it asks this time to really go digging a little deeper, and you may not have to look very far. If things are coming up for you and they're in your face, well, then certainly spend some time with them, So I have been talking to friends. I have been talking to the people I live with. I'm watching my one friend, her car got stolen on Friday night. It's really messed up her life here. There was no lot to park it in by where she was, and they didn't even break the window. They somehow managed to unlock the car, probably with a hairpin or something, or whatever tool they have. And I was with her yesterday and trying to help her and support her, and she was really, she was fine on Friday, but probably she was in shock. And I called her to just see how she was doing, but she was waiting for friends to come pick her up and then go to the FBI place here in San Jose and get her car reported, and it was going to take too long, so she wound up doing it yesterday. And then, of course, she didn't sleep. So it was, I was sitting here supporting her yesterday, and she's really sad. Finally it hit, and she was sad and weeping, and I felt, I told her on Friday, my heart breaks for you. So and she's heartbroken. So if you're feeling heartbroken right now and you're feeling the wounds of that, nurture it, be with it. Go to your favorite healer, go to your favorite astrologer, go do something good for yourself and nurture yourself during this time. That's what this is for. Don't close your heart, keep it open, and, let the wounds surface so that you can heal. Okay. It's not worth bottling it up. Then on top of this, so we have that Jupiter-Saturn going on, and then Mercury gets involved. So Mercury is going forward in Sagittarius now, and it's going to tread over places where it's been in these last weeks. And on Thursday, the 26th, Mercury in Sag opposes Jupiter in Gemini at 5:48 p.m. So it's now Jupiter is fresh from squaring Saturn 2 days prior. So Mercury is going to oppose Jupiter, and then it's going to square Saturn in the wee hours Eastern time of Friday the 27th. So it's going to be 2:29 a.m. Mercury will square Saturn. But we're going to feel that on Thursday. We're going to feel that Mercury entanglement with the Jupiter-Saturn. And maybe it will give you some words and some intellectual clarity on what this is about for you. Mercury, remember, rules Gemini, and that's where Jupiter resides right now. Jupiter's staying there. So Mercury and Jupiter are going to have this conversation, and it's a little stressed because it's a hard aspect. It's an opposition. But Mercury being the planet of communication, maybe some words and some thoughts will come forward that will afford a breakthrough. It might be a little bit sticky because of the Saturn, but it can be really deep revelations for yourself. And don't be afraid to go deep with yourself during this time, during the Jupiter-Saturn, during Mercury's entanglement with them. It's very important to pay attention to your thoughts, to the way you speak to yourself and others. If you are speaking harshly to yourself, you're not helping yourself. And Saturn-Mercury squares, these Mercury-Saturn things, they can easily reveal where we're like calling ourselves names and saying things to ourselves that's a little harsh tone to ourselves. And I want you to warn you against that because it's not good. It's not helpful. And it doesn't give you an opening. It just closes the door more. So use this time to have consciousness about the way you speak to yourself, your thoughts. Keep your thoughts squeaky clean. You want to raise consciousness around your own thoughts and how they are. And with Saturn, you may be really having some very sharp criticisms of yourself. Jupiter will give you the openness and the awareness to connect with what is a sharp criticism of yourself. So we want to use Jupiter's energy to make us aware and to see it in a better light, to see it so that it's not something that is dark. Okay, Jupiter's like, oh, there I go again. I'm saying these things to myself. All right. I'm aware of it. I'm going to watch my language. I'm going to also not criticize people. And for this holiday season, I would like you to do a little exercise. And when you're rushing around and when you're having dinner with ornery family members or people who don't see eye to eye with you or that maybe irritate you, look at them with the greatest amount of compassion and light in this moment, okay? Because we're all going through something. Ultimately, yes, we are, it's up to us. We are responsible for ourselves. We have to be responsible for ourselves. But instead of getting mad at the sales clerk when you're doing your last minute Christmas shopping or when you're, ordering your turkey or doing the things you need to do, just approach it with a lot of compassion and light and put yourself in the person's position, be empathic, send them a lot of light and a lot of love. I heard a story in a program I was in the other day of this woman whose daughter does not treat her well. And she was talking about her daughter and how she, speaks to her meanly and treats her badly and stuff. And she was in a store and she was watching she was watching this daughter and her mother shop, and she was in the self-checkout, and she was observing these people, and the daughter was treating the mother really badly, and it reminded her of her own daughter, and she sent them so much love and light and so much compassion. And the daughter, the girl that was treating her mother badly in the store, the woman didn't know these people at all, but she just sent the daughter so much love and light. And she said to her in her mind, I know you're hurting right now, and I send you so much unconditional love. And the next interaction with her own daughter after the store was a light, unbelievably loving interaction. And her daughter treated her with so much love and gratitude and care that she really believed that the energy she sent to these people came back to her in the form of her daughter, which was a beautiful story. She was getting very choked up talking about this. And it was a beautiful story. You know, what an incredible thing that when she showed compassion for this girl, instead of getting triggered and being reminded of her own daughter, the energy she sent to the young woman, you know, probably changed the dynamic between those two people, but then it also changed the dynamic between her and her own daughter. So love and light wherever we go, wherever we see it's needed. And, you know, in that way, we're like a little angel. We're sprinkling a little fairy dust, a little snowflake dust in the goodness of the holiday season. Okay. Other aspects this week is Venus. Venus is squaring Uranus, and this is going to occur at 2:42 a.m. next Saturday, the 28th. Venus is going to be in Aquarius with Uranus in Taurus. And that is always an interesting, eclectic experience. We don't know what it will bring because it's Uranus, remember. So again, I say in your relationships, please have patience and empathy for people, and seeing that, you know, Uranus and Venus are in this little kerfuffle, that it could be inspiring, it could be creativity, it could be we get triggered, it could be someone surprises you, a Christmas surprise, and says, hey, I haven't talked to you in so long, let's talk, oh my God, it's so great to hear your voice. Or they come over for cocoa by the tree, they bring you a gift, someone gives you something amazing. You know, this is maybe a Christmas surprise. So just stay open to what Venus and Uranus, what we can learn from Venus and Uranus. Venus being, of course, the planet of love and friendship and art and beauty and the goddess. And Uranus being the planet of surprises and the unexpected and brilliance and genius. So you may come up with some ingenious creative idea that may inspire you while you're taking a Christmas break. And so you write it down and maybe you get to work on it in the new year. Or you find a new creative solution for doing something. Or you hear from someone. Ideally, it's like you hear from a friend and you get to wish them good tidings for the new year. The other thing that's happening that's very important on Sunday the 29th is that Chiron is going direct. And this is 4:13 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday the 29th. And that is the next time we meet. The last Sunday of the year, the last podcast of 2024. And Chiron, as you know, as we've spoken about, is either like a dwarf planet, or they used to call a planetoid, or a comet. They're never quite sure. And so I find it something that is definitely an empowered thing in our astrology charts. It has a voice. It speaks its voice, and it is the wounded healer. And it is a time, you know, as Chiron moves forward, and it's stationing direct, and that's, you know, in Aries. And that's Mars's sign, and Mars is retrograde. So remember, they are connected to one another, Mars and Chiron, and they are in this dynamic because, you know, Chiron's living in Mars's place and Chiron is going direct. So he's got some message from the Mars that's going on. And it's helping us assess our wounds some more and hopefully come forward and release some of it and have maybe some more revelations and some freeing up of that wounded energy. So I know it's Christmas, Deb. What are you doing? Isn't it like all Jupiter and happiness? Well, once in a while, Christmas brings eclipses, retrogrades, stuff. And 2 years ago, Mars was retrograde during Christmas in Gemini. So that was complicated. And so now here we are again, because Mars goes retrograde every 2 years. We've got another retrograde Christmas. And it is a time really to be close to your loved ones and connect with them and feel the love and feel the unconditional love and the empathy you have for people who are going through things. So this is part of our journey during this holiday. It is a holiday where we have a big heart, an open heart, an empathic heart, and knowing that this can only bring good things, knowing that this is a time of healing and looking back at whatever we need to heal from this year, but more likely older wounds that we want to, embrace and allow the emotions to come forward. And that is our Christmas blessing, allowing ourselves to be healed. Okay. So on that note, I wish you a beautiful, beautiful holiday. I thank you so much for listening, and all the gratitude in the world to each and every one of you for sticking with me, being with me week to week during this journey of 2024. We still have another week and a half to go in this journey of 2024. And we're going to be onward to the following new year of 2025. There's still a lot to go in this year, so stay tuned because we've got new moon and all sorts of stuff coming the week of the last week of the year. Blessings to all. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Beautiful tidings for a beautiful week and a beautiful holiday. Enjoy it and stay in touch. We will see you next Sunday on the Golden Astrologer Podcast. Blessings to all.